Are you the kind of person who does amazingly, awesomely in school, but then when it comes to standardized tests, something happens, you freak out, and then your brain turns to a total bowl of mush? If so, this video is totally for you. We're gonna talk today about test anxiety, specifically as it applies to the SAT, and give you some pointers on how you can overcome that test anxiety and get a score as awesome as you are. You're wondering who I am. My name's Brooke. I've been teaching and tutoring the SAT and the ACT for over a decade and a half. I also work with students in the college essay process to help coach them to the best essays they can write. You can check out our online course for the SAT called the Best SAT Prep Course Ever. That's at SupertutorTV.com if you like what you hear and you want more awesome tips on the SAT. It's over 100 hours of content, so be sure to check it out. We also have Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, so check those out. And if all else fails, subscribe to our channel. It's totally free. We have at least a video or so a week, and we'd love to keep you in the know of everything on your journey to get awesome test scores and make your college application the best it can be. Cool. So let's talk test anxiety. I will admit, I am not a psychologist. I don't have any magic tricks necessarily for you guys, but I do have experience working with a lot of students who have struggled with test anxiety. And a lot of this is just a matter of navigation and trying to figure out how you can just like squeeze the score out of this process that you need, and also sort of calm yourself as much as possible given the truthfulness of the situation. So I'm gonna go through a few tips that I have, and hopefully these will help you guys out. The first tip that I have for you guys is you need to embrace the idea that it's okay to get things wrong. And it's okay to mess up a few times. And in fact, I recommend that my students plan to mess up. What I like to do is figure out what your goal score is and then figure out how many you can miss, because that kind of quantifies for you, okay, it's okay for me to make mistakes. And then what I like to say is, rather than planning to get as many right as possible, because that's how most people approach tests. Oh, I have to get so many right, and if I miss something, then I'm not getting things right, and that's my goal. It's like, your goal is perfection, most of you. And if you miss one thing, you start to freak out, and then missing that one thing freaks you out, and then that freak out like snowballs, and then freaks you out so much that you miss even more, right? So instead, what I like to say is plan to get some things wrong, and embrace that, and it's okay. And just be like, you know what? My goal is to get 5 wrong in the SAT this week, right? Like, who says that? Probably not a lot of people. But if you say it, it's kind of weirdly empowering. I can get some things wrong, and that's okay. And you probably still can get to your goal score. What we're trying to manage more than anything else, if you do have test anxiety, is the emotion that overcomes you and then keeps you from being your best like game day brain when you have to take the test, right? So we have to figure out like, what are the forces and what are the beliefs that are making you feel this particular way? And how can we kind of prevent that or unpack that or disarm that whole process so that you can just focus and be the awesome student that you are and perform how you would perform if you were just relaxed at home, right? The next tip that I have for you guys is tell yourself the truth, okay? And that is that this is just a test. I know a lot of you freak out at this and you think, oh my gosh, my life's gonna be over, this is gonna end. But I'm here to tell you, your SAT does not define you. It does not define your self-worth. It is not what you're ultimately capable of. You define you. Your test score does not define you. All that a test is, this is all that the SAT is. It is a tool that you can use to potentially create opportunities. Without it, you haven't lost anything. And with it, you might have opened some doors, but your life is not over. And it doesn't mean that there aren't a lot of other opportunities out there in the world and that there aren't other options, even if you completely botch and fail the test. This test is not everything. And when you guys make it out to be everything, I think that like sends you to this total freak out place where you're like, oh my gosh, this test is like everything. It's not everything. It's one component, okay? Number 3. Remember that you control the test does not control you. One of the things that I've worked with some students who have test anxiety is this idea of like making a game plan. I think one of the things that these tests do to us is they just make us feel like smaller than, right? They make us feel like, oh my gosh, I didn't see that coming. And they freak us out, we lose our footing, and we don't know what's going on, and they make us feel like they're these big monsters that we can't control. But if you can come up with a day of test game plan, my point to you guys is you can assert control in a situation where sometimes you feel like you have no control. So here's my day of plan and what happens to me. Like, I know that I'm always going to confront a question that makes me freak out. For me, it's in the reading section. For a lot of you, it's in the reading, it's in the writing, it's in the math, it's in the essay. Like, it's all over the test, right? But whenever you get to that question that freaks you out, that you go, oh, this is hard, and your stomach sinks and you're like, oh no, right? And you have that panic and you're like not sure if you're going to be able to get it right. Even I get that, guys. Like, I've been doing this forever and I still get that stupid feeling, okay? But when you have that stupid feeling, breathe, okay? Number one, breathe. The second thing I do is, if it's a question that's hard, I reread the question. If it's the passage that's hard, I actually do the opposite. I do not reread. Rereading the passage over and over again is like total suicide. The problem with the passage is you do not get any points for reading the whole passage. You only get points for answering questions correctly. So if I'm going to spend a lot of time on something, I want it to be something that I know is going to lead to points. Rereading the passage may not lead to points. It may not. So if I get something that's confusing, I just kind of circle it and I'm like, confusing. And if I know just kind of what the topic is, I just label that. I'm like, okay, that's what the topic is. And I move on. Okay, but I don't let it weigh me down. I don't let it freak me out. I don't keep rereading and rereading and rereading, because that's just gonna dig like a giant tunnel under my feet and I'm gonna fall down into it. So I reread the question, back to the question, reread the question. Most questions are easier than they first appear. So sometimes if I reread the question, it's like, oh, wait, that's not as bad as it first looked. And then you're like, wait a minute. Okay, so what do I know? Okay, I know this and I know this. Oh, wait, if I know those two things, then I know this. Oh, wait, if I know those three things, then I know this, right? And you can start to break it down and you start to just walk into the dark forest and you don't know where the dark forest goes. And you don't know if there's a light in the dark forest, but you just kind of walk in because you know how to put one foot in front of the other. And then you calm down and you just kind of go through it and see, does it get easier? Maybe it gets easier, maybe it doesn't. Then I just use my test taking strategies. I do all the techniques that I've learned, that I've practiced. If you haven't prepped for these tests and you do have test anxiety, it's a really good idea to prep, because what prep does is it gives you a lifeline, right? Part of dealing with this emotional, oh my God, is just to have a list of things to do, right? Okay, when I panic, right? Stop, drop, and roll, right? What do? It's like these same things that you do when you do a fire drill at school. This is like your fire safety drill. You know what I'm saying? This is like the emergency protocol that you do when you have this emergency inside of you. And so if you can look at it as, okay, these are the steps that I take and these are the safety steps that I take. And you know what? If you do these steps and you just breathe and you go through this series of steps, then you have something to hold on to and you retain the control. Again, you control the test. It doesn't control you. Right? And that's why we need to have kind of this protocol and this plan, like, what am I going to do when I freak out? And then at a certain point, I decide how long until I give up. Because when I hit these oh no questions, again, remember how my first point was plan to get some wrong? Well, this is where we plan to get some wrong. This is how we get some wrong. If you're in control of the ones you get wrong because you know, oh, that was hard and I'm going to give up on it, much better to get that wrong than to get something wrong and fight for it and go down sinking and spend 10 minutes on it and then still get it wrong. The chances are these really hard questions, they're the ones you're probably most likely to miss anyway. And so don't be the person to spend too much time in that. The problem with test anxiety is that one bad, mean question becomes more than a mean question. It doesn't just ruin your score for that one question. It haunts you, and then that haunting ruins the next question and the next question and the whole rest of the passage. And then you get totally flummoxed. And it just creates this snowball effect. And that's what we want to cut off. And the way we cut it off is by deciding, you know what, I'm going to get it wrong. Who cares? And know it's okay to give up sometimes. And that's okay. And then you move on. Fourth tip, adjust your expectations to include multiple test settings. One of the biggest mistakes that students make when they have test anxiety is that they think, one and done. I want to take this test once and be totally done with it. No problem. Guys, just don't do that to yourself, okay? You can take this test multiple times, and there's a reason that you can do that, and that's because the test makers understand that there's something called test anxiety. Generally with the SAT, this becomes a little bit harder because SAT test dates are the same as SAT subject dates. So what that means is if you want to take the SAT subject test, you have to take those on an SAT official test date, and that's also the test date that you can use to take a real SAT. Now, if you live in the US, it's not so bad because there's enough test dates throughout the year that you probably can fit everything in pretty well. Currently, the College Board offers the SAT 7 times a year for US people. And that's if you don't have a school day test. If you have a school day test, You have 8 times a year you can take the SAT. I recommend that any student who normally struggles with test anxiety plan to take the thing 3 times, just plan to. Because when you have test anxiety, a lot of times it's just showing up and just repetition and just showing up and having your brain show up that day. All you need is one good test date. It doesn't have to be every one. The other thing that planning to take it 3 times does is it takes the pressure off the first one, because it's like, you know what? I got 2 more takes. If I totally really screw this up, who cares? So what? It's fine. I've got a couple more chances. Now, this does become more complicated, particularly for students who are international, because internationally, College Board only offers 4 test dates. And so that severely limits you, especially if you're taking subject tests. So anybody who has test anxiety and lives in an international location and is planning to take the SAT instead of the ACT and wants to take SAT subject tests, I recommend that you start this testing process by October of your junior year if possible, just to give you enough test dates so that if you screw up royally the first couple of times, you've got another shot. Cool? Cool. My next tip is to take the ACT as a backup. One of the ways that we've fooled the nerves of some of my past private students is to have them take the ACT just as a backup, just for fun. Don't worry about it too much. And sometimes what happens is they do marvelously well on the ACT. You know why? Because they don't think it matters that much, because it's not the test they poured all this time and effort and prep into. And some of the prep transfers from the SAT to the ACT. I had a student a few years ago who was an athletic recruit, and he needed a particular score to get in. And if he got that score, he would get in and go. And if he didn't get that score, he wouldn't be able to go. It was that simple. So we were prepping for the SAT because he was scoring 100 points higher equivalency-wise than on his ACTs that he took for practice. So we prepped for the ACT maybe for a week, maybe 2 weeks. And we prepped for the SAT for like a month and a half. And he went and took the ACT. We didn't think much of it. And then he took the SAT. Well, he bombed the SAT when he took it. But his ACT score got him where he needed to be. And he got in. And he got to go to the college that he wanted to go to. And it all worked out. And it all worked out because we threw that lottery ticket in the mix. So don't be afraid to give yourself more lottery tickets. And one of those lottery tickets is taking the other test. There's no rule that says you can't take it, both of them. And the other thing that's really cool is most schools do not make you send every score. My next tip, make a plan C. So this is my last tip here. And the reason that I like to make a plan C is twofold. One, making a plan C, again, relieves anxiety because it shows you that this test is not the end of the world. And 2, the other reason that it's good to make a plan C is because you actually then have a plan C. The first part of that plan C is test optional schools. There's a lot of schools out there, you don't need an SAT or ACT score at all. The most famous of these, of course, are the highest ranked is the University of Chicago. And the entire University of California system recently announced that it's considering going test optional 100% with all of its colleges. So that's really exciting news. And I will say, as somebody who works in California and coaches a lot of students who are looking to go to California schools, those schools are already very forgiving when it comes to test scores. They're much more interested in your GPA than your test score. Their test score ranges tend to be really broad. So there are really great universities that you can get into that are test optional, and there's plenty of lists out on the internet that you can Google and look up. Second option within your plan C is transferring, particularly the community college transfer pathway. You know, to go to community college, you don't have to have a test score at all. You don't have to take the ACT or the SAT generally. You just gotta go. You gotta get a high school diploma and then you sign up. Did you know that over a third of US college students transfer at some point in their college careers? That's quite a few people, isn't it? So you are not alone if you go this route. It's not a bad route to go. I think it's really cool to be realistic about how to make your future happen. Like, ask yourself, what is it that you really want, right? Do you want an awesome job? Do you want to change the world? Do you want to be a leader in society? Do you want to get a degree from a college that you're proud of? You can do all those things and start in community college. So in any case, I hope you guys like this video. So please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to our channel if you haven't yet. All you have to do is click subscribe below this video. Thanks for watching, everybody. Don't worry, you've got this test. You're in charge, not the test. And I'll see you guys next time on SupertutorTV. Good luck if you're taking the test soon. Bye.